And joining us now is Yesha Sivan. He is the founder of i24NEWS, and he is also a visiting professor of digital innovation and venture at the Chinese University of Hong Kong Business School. And Yesha, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Certainly this is an achievement for Israel, the Prime Minister, getting the Chinese Vice President here. The talk in Israel is of China as the sky's the limit market, but it's also a very difficult market for foreigners to crack. How assess for us the realistic options for Israeli tech in China?
Yes. Many people are not fully familiar with what is happening in China, and they live off all kinds of past vision and experiences. The opportunities in China are tremendous. We are now at the beginning of their development, They, for the last 20 years, average 6-8% every year, and they continue to grow. So it's a major set of opportunities.
What does Israel, though, have to offer a country like China? If you look at them on the face of it, I mean, you're talking about exponentially different in size and culture and everything about it.
So I think, first of all, Chinese really appreciate the Jewish people. They always compare 5,000 years and 5,000 years. For them, U.S. is just a midget. I mean, it's 200, 300 years. It's nothing. So that's the beginning. So there's a lot of appreciation. And I think I always talk about the equation of 0 to 1 to 100. So in their mind, we are especially good at 0 to 1. There was nothing there.
Initial innovation.
Yeah, there's nothing there, and something happened. And then taking it from 1 to 100 is the next phase. So I'll give you a tiny example. They took what we considered our biggest inventions at the time, ICQ. They turned it into slight modifications called QQ. And after 5 or 10 years of QQ becoming the #1 messenger communication, they actually, Tencent, the owner, actually killed it, started WeChat, which is now a much bigger deal. I would say 10 times more sophisticated than the comparative on the West.
So let me ask you, the current trade tensions between China and the U.S., is that an opportunity for Israel to sort of step in there, or is it perhaps a problem given the sort of political relationships involved here?
You know, the famous Chinese idiom, may we live in interesting times.
So
we are in interesting times, and there's a lot of turmoil. Basically, the Chinese are looking at Israel as a proxy for a source of technologies. Many cases they can talk to American companies right here in Israel, which they cannot do in America. I think overall this tension is positive in the sense that it's going to fix the problematic relationship that China had with the world in terms of allowing foreign investors going in. But on the other hand, there's a little bit of a tension now, and the ability of companies to invest long-term is getting a little bit more difficult. So we have to see.
So especially in light of that extra complication now with that trade war between the U.S. and China, how do you sort of view China's foray into the Middle East? Because they have poured billions upon billions of dollars in this part of the world trying to get a footprint. What is their long-term plan?
They are everywhere, all over the world, period. And their investment in the Middle East is minute compared to their investment in East Asia and in Africa and other places. For them, they basically try to plug in little holes. So if they own the port somewhere, then it's a base. One cannot fully understand the scale. Just to give you a tiny thing, I used to work with a small company in Hong Kong. They had 2,000 employees. Okay, tiny company, 2,000 employees. But at the end of the day, they owned another 150 companies of their size all over China. So when they started to do something like cloud computing, the first thing that they did is $100 million to open up a new cloud computing company.
So why should these companies invest in infrastructure in Israel, for example, something we've seen China try to do?
Basically, it's creating for them jobs. It's the same way the U.S. has funded its own military development, basically by pouring into the IDF money, and then the money goes into the U.S. So it's the same thing. The government gives money to build a road. The company that's building the road is, surprisingly, Chinese.
And they use Chinese workers, and we see in Israel many Chinese workers. Just in the few seconds remaining, one tip for Israelis doing business in China.
Okay, great. I was waiting for this question. So I always say to Israelis, when you meet a Chinese person, you want to do a deal. You want to do a deal. The best deal, his deal, best deal, win-win, all kinds of these terms. You completely don't get it. The Chinese person is interested in getting married with your daughter. That's the way they think, long-term. They think about long-term relationship. So once you understand that, then you can go forward into relations.
That will take patience for that Israelis don't have.
Exactly.
Another strange match between the two, but one that seems to work. Professor Yesha Sivan, i8 Ventures, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much.